Like, I just wanted to write the saddest song in the world. And I was like, who's going to listen to the saddest song in the world about something that we already know is sad? Like, and how can that introduce people to a topic that already is so foreign to them? And so then Ben Abraham was playing like these series of chords, and I'm like, this sounds so happy. And he's like, yeah, I've had Lionel Richie's All Night Long stuck in my head. And I was like, I've never heard of this song.
What?
I'd never heard of it.
That's a great song.
It's such a great song.
Yeah.
And so it ended up inspiring. I was like, I just want to write like a song that almost fits into the 80s.
Come on and sing along all night long, all night, all night long, all night, all night long, all night, all night long. Oh, yeah.
Welcome to This Broken Mixtape, the podcast that rewinds and presses play on the soundtrack to your life. I'm Jeff Wu.
And I'm Justin Lee.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Hailing from Brisbane, Australia, electronic R&B singer-songwriter Wafia has already released 2 critically acclaimed EPs and a collaborative EP in under 3 years. Her latest EP, XIII, marks a maturity in her songwriting as she touches on the Syrian refugee crisis, embracing her sexuality, and dealing with heartache. We sat down with Wafia before her sold-out show at the Drake Hotel to discuss what it's like to tour the United States as an artist of Arab descent, how her music caught the attention of Pharrell, and her favorite songs to make up and break up to.
You're tuned into This Broken Mixtape. This week's guest is R&B electronic artist Wafia. Thanks for being on the show, Wafia.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you especially because I know that you have been under the weather a little bit, just kind of all the traveling from the touring. So thank you for, giving us a little bit of your voice before you go on stage.
It's no worries. I'm so excited about this.
So, you've done a bunch of covers, but the two that I happen to really love are both R&B throwback staples. You have Mario's I Just Want to Love You and Estelle's American Boy. So I imagine that this type of music kind of made like a strong impression on you growing up. I'm wondering, what else did you kind of listen to? What were some staples that were playing around the house?
Lots of Britney Spears. But then actually a lot of like Middle Eastern music was played around the house. I'm Arab, so there was a lot of like Arabic music. And then on top of that, yeah, lots of boy and girl bands. Like I was obsessed with Beyonce and Destiny's Child, obviously, at that time, and TLC and Lauryn Hill. That was like my go-to. So, and I just love soundtracks as well. I remember just being obsessed with musicals, and yeah, so.
Do you have a favorite soundtrack?
Sister Act 2 soundtrack.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. I don't know why you're embarrassed about that. It's so good.
No, someone the other day made me feel like rubbish for saying it.
I have a friend who does like an annual Sister Act 2 screening. So she plays, like she's a musician herself, so she plays like sort of gospel songs from that soundtrack, and then also just screens it after, and it's like a big sort of sing-along.
I love that.
Yeah, people love that movie.
Apparently this radio host that I was speaking to the other day does not, and really made me feel like trash about it. He's like, you like the sequel? I'm like, yeah, it was really good.
Of course,
Lauryn
the
Hill
sequel.
was in it.
It's one of the few sequels that's better than the original, I think.
Facts.
Yeah. Speaking of American Boy, it's funny because I have this connection to American Boy. My girlfriend's nephew he just turned 1 like just a couple of weeks ago. It's crazy that this is the only song that lulls this kid to sleep.
No
like
way.
I think it's a combination of the soothing voice, Ewan Taku's voice, and then just his like down tempo production. But whenever you play the song, he's just like, you could see him slowly falling asleep.
Oh my gosh, this is the nicest thing I've ever heard. That's so wholesome.
It is wholesome, but if you think about sort of the lyrics of that song, it's like, this is a little weird, right?
That is true.
Yeah. But we were joking about how we should bring him along to the show, but he's probably not quite old enough to go to his first concert yet.
Yeah,
but.
I'm sorry. I think it's 19 plus. But usually that song is like my encore song. But because I'm not feeling great today, I don't think I'll do it.
Yeah.
But we'll see how I feel. We'll see how the crowd responds. But I love that song. But I particularly love playing it when I have my full band with me because that ending is so epic.
Absolutely.
it doesn't translate as well when it's just me and my keyboardist, which is what we're like a more stripped back set, which is what we're doing tonight.
Okay. Speaking of Taku, so you guys have collaborated quite a bit. You did a collaborative EP a couple of years ago, and I know he's produced a number of your tracks. How did you guys get to, how did you meet and just eventually decide to collaborate?
Literally met on some basketball courts.
Okay.
I was doing like a photo shoot with someone that turned out to be his friend, and he photobombed it, and I distinctly remember like stepping out of the frame and like walking up to my publicist at the time and being like, who is this guy with the fade that thinks he's Taku? Like, because I only just caught a glimpse of him. I didn't like properly look at him. And then the photographer that I was working with like called me over. He's like, this is Reggie, this is Taku, you guys should work together. And I was like, oh, and I felt so stupid. Like, and I didn't reach out to him or anything like that. And I was like, well, that's the end of that connection. It's fine. It's not meant to be. So I go home, and then my phone had died during the day while I was out. And then I get home, and he had hit me up on like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, just being like, let's work. And I was like, yes. I'm so glad that eventuated into something, because I really thought that my reaction to seeing him was a dead end.
That's awesome. For this EP, it very much feels like sort of the most like honest representation of yourself as an artist. And it's not to say the previous work that you've done wasn't you, but I feel like you've become more confident in your songwriting, particularly with tracks like Bodies and It's Only Love. I feel like this is a record that is kind of really like, we're seeing you as, you know, we always saw you as a vocalist, but this is a record that, okay, this is Wafia, the songwriter. I'm wondering what sort of factors were involved in sort of getting you to this point where you felt more comfortable with your songwriting.
I think it was a number of things. I think me having had at that, like, a point of writing a 3-year relationship with my co-writer, which meant I felt more comfortable opening up to him. But also, like, I realized that I'm always on social media talking about visibility for people of color and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait, I can't be like not doing what I preach and what I encourage other people to do. And so essentially that was kind of the turning point. And it sort of happened slowly over time. Like, I was just writing these songs and I just was becoming more honest and more vulnerable. Like, I don't know, I just wanted to write about stuff that was real to me. Not that it wasn't ever real, but just like peel another layer and just be like, here's a little bit more. And especially going into like something like more like a full length in the future, like I just wanted to give more of an introduction to what you might expect. And so then therefore like all those big things are discussed already, so I don't feel like I need to reintroduce myself with an album. I can just go straight into it, delve into more of like specifics and stuff than like broad themes now that I've just addressed stuff.
One song in particular, Your Bodies, definitely I can't think of any sort of song which is spoke about the Syrian refugee crisis right now, and because it becomes from like such a personal place. I know that I understand some of your family members are still in Syria after being denied visas into Australia. Tell us why it was really important for you to write this song, and what it really means for you for people to hear it.
Honestly, I just did it because that was like, there was so much like Trump in the news at that time, and he wasn't elected yet, but he was promising a Muslim ban if he was. And my mom had just gone through this rigorous process of being denied in Australia, and so many like media outlets are just so happy to play devil's advocate, as it were, and be like, what happens if we did have a Muslim ban, and just sort of entertain these like notions of, I don't know, like, how could you play devil's advocate to something that is just so heinous and is against, like, I don't know, a moral code as a society. And so I was feeling pretty trash about it. And I think I was like, I was going into all these sessions, and there was just like so much that I wasn't talking about, and it was my family. And I was doing all these sessions with other people that I had never really worked with before. And then that session for Bodies, I went in with Ben Abraham, who is someone that I wrote Heartburn with and Love Somebody with. So we'd had a history of writing together, and he's one of my closest friends, and I just like told him about my family that day, and yeah, we wrote a song on the back of it. I guess first I wanted to be so, like, I just wanted to write the saddest song in the world. And I was like, who's going to listen to the saddest song in the world about something that we already know is sad? Like, and how can that introduce people to a topic that already is so foreign to them? And so then Ben Abraham was playing like these series of chords, and I'm like, this sounds so happy. And he's like, yeah, I've had Lionel Richie's All Night Long stuck in my head. And I was like, I've never heard of this song.
What?
I'd never heard of it.
It's a great song.
It's such a great song.
Yeah.
And so it ended up inspiring. I was like, I just want to write like a song that almost fits into the 80s. And I don't know if, like, for me, I remember when I first sent it to my managers, honestly, they were like, do you want to keep this song? And I was like, yeah. You don't know what it's about. Let me tell you what it's about right now. And then that was when they like shifted. But just like on first listen, they had no idea what the song was about, and just thought like, they're like, this is a really great pop song, but we didn't know you wanted to go in this direction. I was like, I didn't know either. Let's just do it. Let's just put it out and see what happens. And I just didn't like, at the time I didn't think, and even in putting it out, my focus was never what other people would think. It was like, is my mom proud of me? Because I think that's what it always comes back to, is like, I guess I sort of have this approach in everything that I do, and it's like, if my sisters like looked me up or showed my stuff to my friends, could they be proud of that? And so that's sort of the approach that I have to everything, and I think Bodies was just an extension of that.
I know a lot of international artists and bands have sort of banned touring in the U.S. under the current administration. And, you know, there's definitely great reasons for that. I'm wondering if you had any hesitation before planning this tour, and what it's been like, you know, playing to shows in L.A. and Chicago and New York and whatnot.
I guess, I think when you're like filled with anger, like I remember when the results came out and Trump was elected, I was like, I am never entering the US ever again. And I was like, that's exactly what he wants. Like, I'm so lucky where I do have access to go and I can play these shows and people can learn about stuff like Bodies. Like, why would I stop myself from that? So that was a decision that I made in myself, and I just like, the world doesn't stop because someone like him has been elected. Like, I guess people have other administrations have never been so kind to my people. You know what I mean? Not to say that they were worse than he is, but like, it's still in the past has affected my family. Like, drone strikes and stuff have happened in Syria, and that's affected my family. And Bush entering Iraq, invading Iraq, that affected my family. But like, that didn't stop me, so why would he? And yeah, I don't know. And I also think that I have like a very nice, considered, thoughtful audience. And to stop performing because just some awful guy is at the top of the country, that's not fair. That's like, that doesn't allow conversation and dialogue about something that's happening. I don't know. Like, that's exactly what he would want.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I think that, you know, as this is kind of cheesy and cliche, but like, the only way to really truly combat hatred is, you know, to come back with love.
Totally.
You know, it's difficult to do, like, especially like, I mean, we're not American, but we certainly feel the same way. I think like the entire world does, but just to see the kinds of things that have come out of his mouth and you know, it's absurd. Yeah, where do you even begin dissecting that, man? So another song that I want to talk about on the record, It's Only Love. I know that the song is about sort of embracing your sexuality. I'm wondering how it was to sort of come out to your parents. I mean, you know, that's in itself like a very difficult thing to do for anyone, but for someone of, Arab Muslim parents might be considered a lot more difficult?
I think it's been like, I guess I went about it like in the worst way. I feel okay. I had a show early like last year, and me and Ben had just written Only Love, and I was like on stage, and I was like, let's play Only Love, like let's do it. And my mum flew in from Sydney to watch the show, and I just sang the song, and I explained what the song was about beforehand. That's kind of how I told her that I was bi.
Wow.
But after the show, like that probably wasn't very considerate. But she was, after the show, she just hugged me, and that's all that needed to be done. Like nothing really needed to be said or did. It didn't change me. That was all. Mm-hmm. Because it's a non-event.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be treated like an event.
Right. And I think that's sort of the power of this song is that, it's being played to a number of audiences. And I think that, when people actually sit down and listen to the lyrics, hopefully it'll raise some, conversation. And, I think that, both, no matter what your sexuality is, I think there's something to be that, to gain from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
So this is kind of our de facto Valentine's Day show, because this is going to be aired on the 8th of February. So definitely there's like a lot of themes of love. And one of the things that I want to talk about is on this record, there's a lot about heartbreak, and as well as some of your previous songs. And in particular, there's this one song, 83 Days, which really, like, I had heard that song when you put it out, but then I hadn't heard the live version of the song until recently. I think about 3 weeks ago, my girlfriend and I broke up, and I heard this song. Thank you. I heard this song, the stripped down version, the live song, and to me it just felt more vulnerable than the sort of produced version. Not to say it's better or worse, but it really hit me. And there's that one line where I can't quote exactly, but you say, I heard our song, and then like that's sort of how you knew how affected you were by the relationship. You kind of like sort of playing it cool, and then you just sort of realize how much this person means to you. And I feel like, I think that like that's sort of the stages of breakup. You try to move on, but at the same time you're kind of clinging to the past. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about music is like it sort of serves as a time machine. And reminds you of certain people. And I think very much your music reminds me of her. Her name's Polly. We're trying to work things out, but I think that this song has, like, I've had it on a loop pretty much for the last 3 weeks. And actually a lot of your music and Taku's, because of course Taku has those 2 EPs, songs to make up to and songs to break up to. Yeah. I've been listening to those nonstop as well. Yeah. So I'm wondering, what kind of person are you when you are sort of dealing with the breakup? Are you someone who gravitates towards what I like to call sad bastard music? Just like, like that gut-wrenching, soulful music.
Oh, first of all, I'm so sorry you're going through that.
Oh, thank you.
I hope you're surrounded by friends that help you with that.
She's actually coming tonight. Hopefully, I'm hoping we can work things out. So.
Oh, shout out, Polly. I think I need to let emotions like live and fester and just make me like explode. And then therefore I've thought about everything and I've listened to all these other songs about breakups, and then I go write my own. You know what I mean? Like I wish I knew how to be happy in a breakup. I don't think anyone's really mastered that. And if you do, I mean, like, how do you live?
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had that kind of. To
be like a robot and just to sort of detach yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, power to the people who can. I mean, I can't figure out if that's a good or a bad thing.
What would you say a couple of your favorite sort of sad bastard songs that you would play? I mean, obviously, like a lot of people would name check Lauryn Hill's X Factor. That's kind of like the ultimate breakup song. But.
I really love Mario's So Sick. So sick of love songs, so tired of tears, so done with wishing that you were still here. Like, and like that line, gotta change my answering machine now that I forgot, like, I can't recall exactly, but that one. Because I think like early thousands music is like, it's like super sad, but it has a bounce to it.
Sure.
So you can kind of get away with listening to it on repeat without your family thinking that you're going crazy. I think, yeah, that one's one that I come back to a lot.
I know that you're involved with the nonprofit group, Global Citizen. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with that and what kind of role you play in that.
Yeah, well, got involved because I think they reached out to my booking agent, or my booking agent reached out to, I don't know who reached out to her, but essentially I think we both had like a similar sort of, we were talking about like similar issues, I guess, and me and my background and bodies and being able to put out a political song like that. And there's so much about raising awareness. And so that we came to an agreement that like people could win tickets to the shows by like going onto the site and like helping out their local communities and spreading awareness and talking about things, and I think reaching out to their local people in government to to enact change in their communities, which is really great. And I think it puts it to people in a really digestible way. And like, it's like, you know, all the information is all there on that side, and that makes it so helpful. And yeah, it's been really great, and seeing those people that have won tickets come out to the shows as well. And yeah, it's been really, it makes a lot of sense, I guess, to me.
So you've collaborated already with so many great producers, but you know, at the same time, you must have this sort of dream wish list of people that you want to, you know, either producers or other artists that you want to work with. Can you tell us some of those?
I'd obviously love to work with Pharrell one day. Like, his beats are just so like.
Well, he's a fan of yours.
Yeah.
I mean, he played Heartburn like a few times on his Beats One show.
He was the first person to ever give it a radio play.
Wow, that's incredible.
And yeah, that meant a lot to me. But yeah, I'd love to work with him, especially like his work on the new NERD album. Like, his beats are just so dirty and heavy, and I love that, and so aggressive. Which is unlike anything I've ever done. So I just feel like we could make something really cool together.
How's your rapping? Because I mean, you know, before pre-Lemonade, we didn't know that Rihanna could seriously rap. And
yeah, I love that song. Pharrell wrote that whole song. I think he wrote all the lyrics in that. My rapping is right now terrible. I'm barely able to sing. But I think, who else? There's quite a few. I really like, there's a lot of like, I'm trying to think, Canadian people. Noah Shabib, of course, 40. He does a lot of Drake stuff. That would be cool. I also really like what Majid Jordan do. They're Toronto boys too, I believe.
Yeah. Your first EP was entitled 29, and it was formatted in Roman numerals. And this next one is entitled 8, also in Roman numerals. What are the significance of these two numbers?
29 is the atomic number for copper.
Okay.
And at the time, I was in a state of transition, and that's kind of like copper is a transitional metal. And so, and it just made sense. A lot of those songs as well were written in transition, or they were about transition, and yeah, that just conceptually made sense to me.
I don't think have you talked about this in other interviews? Yeah. Okay.
And then 8 is the atomic number for oxygen. And oxygen, like, it was going back to like all the things we're talking about with like me being the most honest I have. I felt like that was transparency. And that was like 83 Days is about intangibility. And there was I guess bodies and songs like Only Love, they to me also denote like necessity. Like, you need to talk about those things, and which are all properties of oxygen. and I just felt like Oxygen encompassed that record. And so, yeah, to me, it's just like, I don't know if they make sense to other people or not, but to me, it's the best way I know how to package my stuff, at least in terms of when I'm in the writing process.
Yeah, like I mean, that's a very science-like sort of explanation, like or reasoning for those titles. But I mean, in a way, that's really poetic. I feel like I wish I knew that before, but now I know.
Now you know. I like to leave like little things that people can like find if they want to, but it's like it can kind of also still look cool on surface level. Like you don't need to know everything, you know. Like people are always like, "Oh, are you a fan if you know about this stuff?" And it's like you can still be a fan. Like I don't know, it doesn't have to be the forefront of something.
Yeah, well, it's fun to discover it. Like, look at Justin right now.
Yeah.
He's so happy about it. It's great.
I feel like I'm watching like Neil deGrasse Tyson right now. The last time I saw you was at the Opera House, and you were playing Wataku. And, you know, I know that you were saying tonight's going to be more of a stripped-down set, just you. But normally you have a full band. What's that like, just sort of being like, you know, just on your own on stage? This
one is actually, I have a keyboardist on stage, and he does keys and bass. All kind of synth stuff, though. I love playing with like drum kit and when I can get a guitar, because it just feels like so much more real, and there's an element of like this could mess up at any time, and it, like kind of performing without a safety net. These ones are a little bit more safe, but yeah, I never really thought about it until literally tonight. Like this is not one of the best I've felt before a show. And I'm kind of wishing I was like one of those artists that could lip sync right now, because I'd get through fine, but I cannot even, like, I'd rather do a performance where my voice was really trash, than like do something where, I don't know, I wasn't being vulnerable at the very least.
Yeah. So I know you have these 2 EPs and then the collaborative with Taku. Are you working on a full length right now? And if so, when do you think that might come out?
I can't tell you when it will come out right now, but I am like literally in the middle of it. I did a couple of weeks before tour, and then the day tour stops, I'm back into it. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. I feel like it's my best songwriting yet. But I had all these, like, I had like 25 songs at the end of last year, and I kind of just decided to not throw them out per se, because they're never ever really gone, but just sort of like close the book on those and just sort of take a bet on myself that what I can write will be better than what I had been writing, and so far so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what a true artist does is, you know, it's one thing to just have all this material and just have no sort of filter or sort of process where you're like, I'm just going to put everything out, you know. Sometimes I feel like, I mean, nothing against Drake, but I feel like that guy just puts out way too much music. And, you know, like a lot of it is good, but a lot of it is just very mediocre. And I think unless you're someone like Prince, who was able to put out, you know, that guy put out maybe on average a record a year, like for his entire career span. And I mean, not to say that every single one was like a hit, but, you know, the majority of his music was fantastic. So I think there's something to be said about that. So just this sort of process of slowly kind of, you know, writing, recording, and putting out what you feel is the best of your work is kind of admirable.
I feel like someone the other day before we started a session asked me what like my best trait was. Like, am I a lyrics girl? Am I a melody girl? Am I a concept girl? And I was like, at the time I was like, jack of all trades, master of none. But as you're talking right now, I was transported to that moment, and I was like, I think I'm just a good editor. Like, I think that's I know how to. I don't need someone to come in and tell me, hey, this isn't good, cut that. I already know that. I don't need someone else to come in and tell me that. Even though, you know, not to say that I have like the best opinion in my team. I'm not saying that, obviously. I will always take everything into consideration, but generally if someone feels like that's not my best work, then I know that it's not my best work, you know? Like, yeah. I think it's really important to edit yourself.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. I think people sort of, yeah, I mean, maybe Drake is editing himself though. We don't know how much he has like in the backlog that we haven't seen, you know, but I don't know. I just, yeah, I like packaging things and editing things and taking stuff out. And I'm a true believer in less is more. Like, I'd rather have put out smaller bodies of work over a longer period of time than just constantly release singles. I don't think I could ever be the type of person to just release singles. Like, in my head, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like, I have to work in bodies of work.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, you know, for long, at least for the last decade, people have been saying that the record is dead, and we're just been in an age of singles, especially with streaming services. But I truly am old school in that I like listening to albums, like, front to back.
Yeah, I actually don't know if I consume music that way. I don't consume enough music these days to have an opinion on that. But I can speak for the way that I create. And the way I create is in bodies of work. So regardless of how other people take that or choose to consume it, that's not my problem. That's not my department, you know? For me, it's like I have to work in that. I did see there's like 2 very different artists were like releasing albums, but they were releasing them in 3 parts.
Okay.
So essentially like 3 EPs over a year.
Sure.
That at the end get packaged to make an album, which is... I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it makes sense in terms of the way that people consume music and the press, and, you know, then you'll constantly be in the press for the next year. But I'm like, do you want to be in the press that much? I don't know. I don't know.
I think there's definitely benefits to that, because that allows people to sort of, because people, when an album comes out, and if it's you know, more than 12 songs, it's a lot to consume, and, you know, like it or not, some of those songs are going to fall by the wayside, you know, and I think that, like, the ones that don't grab you right away. So I think there's something to be said about slowly releasing track by track, or, you know, EPs.
I would agree with that, but I also just think, like, make your quality of work better. I feel like the Solange Crane Sit at the Table record stayed with everyone, and that album is huge. And I think the SZA album stay with people, but that's just because those are both great bodies of work,
right?
And so people are down to consume bodies of work. They consume Beyonce's, they consume Rihanna's auntie, like, they're down. You just have to create something that's worth listening to.
Yeah, you have to keep their attention too, right? You can't put any weak material.
No, definitely cannot. So I just feel like we just need to, like, as artists, kind of like step up and just, like, you know, so many people, like, there's that word fillers, you know, and it's like, no, like, try to, I don't know. I think, like, I sort of approach music where if this was, I work in bodies of work, but I was like, if this was to be released as a standalone single before the EP is, like, has been released and I've spoken about the concept, doesn't make sense. And I feel like it's kind of good to sort of sit in between both worlds, where you can objectively look at your work as like a single, but then also see it in a body of work and say, is this cohesive but not boring?
Right.
I don't know. But I haven't released an album yet, so I could suck.
Oh, I doubt that. So just the other day, the Grammys were on, and, you know, despite having a lot of incredible female artists nominated, SZA, as you mentioned, Lorde, so like, this is one of the best years. Last year was probably one of the best years in music, period, in a really long time. And yet so few women won. I think, like they said, Alicia
Cara was the only
which was
female
insane. And then
in a major category. Yeah.
So, I mean, what's your response to that? And, like, what, you know, I mean, there's something to be said about the Grammys in general. Like, they seem pretty irrelevant. Yeah. They have been irrelevant for a long time. But
they only have the worth that we place on it. And it's like, people are mad because we've placed worth on them for so long. But the minute you stop caring, then the minute they don't mean anything. And I feel like there's so much great art that they don't recognize, and it's so cool. Like, I loved everyone in that best new artist category. Like, Julia Michaels, so deserving. But why would you put all those people in the same category? Like, spread it out. But yeah, I mean, then I saw that thing of is it the president of the Grammys that he said women need to step up?
Yeah.
And it's like,
he did since like
how?
earlier today say like he regretted that, obviously, which it was like the dumbest thing anyone could say.
Yeah.
Especially like in the current climate, like how dumb do you have to be?
Right.
I don't know. I think women have been making great art. I feel like women feel a lot, but when men do it, we're like, oh, he's being so emotional. We should all listen. And it's like, don't get me wrong, Bruno Mars had a great album. Bruno Mars sounds fun. And I can't think of many people on the radio that are making music that actually sounds like it was fun to make.
Sure.
So I don't get me wrong. And I'm all about like a man of color winning. Like that's cool. Like, cool. Great. He did that. But like in terms of other female acts, I don't know. Like, I also don't know who's like voting for these. Like, there's so much shroud. Like, if there was more transparency, then there'd be people to hold accountable for this. But it's just not worth it. It's just the Grammys.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's so, I mean, I don't know what needs to be done, but it just definitely, like, I think most true music fans kind of checked out of the Grammys years ago. But yeah. So just wrapping up here, we did talk about some of your favorite breakup songs. Let's go on the other scale of things, try to end off on a positive note. What are your favorite, just the soundtrack of falling in love with someone?
Oh.
Whether they're albums or songs.
It's Let Me Love You by Mario.
Another Mario song. Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized.
Are you playing it tonight?
I am playing that one tonight if I can sing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one of my favorites. I'm trying to think. Apparently, I'm just listening to Mario right now. I'm not listening to music right now, so that's why I'm like completely stopped. Like when I'm like writing music, I'm not listening to music because everything is like too inspiring.
Sure.
And I just don't want to subconsciously rip something off. I just want to feel like my creativity comes from myself.
Sure.
But yeah, that's the only one I have for you right now.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you so much for being on the show, Wafia.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
And we're looking forward to tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
You've been listening to episode 28 of This Broken Mixtape featuring electro soul singer-songwriter Wafia. If you like what we do, we would really appreciate if you would rate and share our podcast so we can reach more listeners. Also, make sure to check out thisbrokenmixtape.com where you'll find this episode's Spotify playlist and all of our other past interviews. You can also find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and now YouTube. Join us next week where our special guests will be indie folk pop duo Moscow Apartment. Thanks for listening. Until next time.